لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. طيب. نسأل الله عز وجل أن يجعل وقتنا هذا وقتا مفيدا وأن يبارك لنا فيه، ونحمد الله عز وجل ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، ونشرع في المقصود إن شاء الله تعالى. As usual, I would like to start with a quick question, just like a small poll, just to get our compass up and running. The last time I asked is, what is our target from this? Today, I'm just going to ask the questions are going to take a couple of seconds, no longer than that, a couple of minutes. So if after a certain period of time, inshallah, each one of you will master sciences of Hadith, or let's presume you are at that stage today. If you have all of the tools that you need in order to be masterful at the sciences of Hadith, what would you use it for actually, like practically? Where is it? Like, what is there any certain topic, subject? What are you trying to extract from it? Is that something that you already have on your mind? Like, imagine, Akhi Ahmed, like at this moment, you have all of the knowledge of Hadith. What is this topic that is in your mind that you don't know what its answer is, and you would wish that you were capable of having those tools that will allow you to settle it once and for all? This question goes to you, goes to every brother and sister in here. Is there something in your mind that really is itching you, saying, I wish I knew a little bit more about Hadith so that I can put this matter to rest? Is there something that's there, or is it just a basic general knowledge because someone feels that we get exposed to many different things? We get exposed to fiqh, we get exposed to some history and so on. But when it comes to Hadith, it's not something that will pass by on its own. You have to go and fetch it. So let's go back to the original question. Is there anything at all that, if you have that magic wand, where would you point this magic wand and get this magic answer from the Hadith? Okay, so what you're saying is that even though you hold tafsir books and you read tafsir, but at some point in time you might think, well, is this true or not? Is that fair enough to say? All right, so tafsir Quran is a great example. So it's either narrations that are put in the tafsir about the meaning of the ayat, or if sometimes some of the mufassirin, the scholars, Mujahid, Qatada, and Al-Amash, and other people, whose names are always evident in the books of tafsir, you want to know, is this even authentic what they said? Is there a chain of narrations? So that is a very valid question. Any other suggestions? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. All right, that's true. What I would expand on this, I would say, alhamdulillah, we all know how to perform tahara and the preparation for salat and salat, but this is the skeleton. You want to put meat on the bones, because we know this basic structure, but there's a lot more than just praying. There's a lot more. It's like the philosophy of life. Right. Yeah. We can add to that is that a lot of books of Sirah, the narrations in them are not substantiated. So it allows you to go and sift and recognize what comes with certain asanid and narrations and which didn't. So if you want to recreate the seerah from the hadith that has acceptable asanid, it will come a fraction of the size of Sirat ibn Hisham, for example. The most famous book of seerah that we have around us is Sirat ibn Hisham. And it is, let's say, it's quite sizable. But if you go and you recreate the seerah from all the hadiths that we have, you still will have the same profile of the life of the Prophet ﷺ and all the incidents that happened. But there are so many details that come in the book of Sirat ibn Hisham that have no asanid. And it's like fillers that some historians put it in there. And when you go and start looking at the biographies of some of those historians, they are problematic. They are polarizing. So you will start to find out, okay, which areas are certain and which areas are negotiable. And then we can differentiate between what is Islamic and what's cultural. Make sense? All right, any other suggestion? Fadal.
Sometimes I cross maybe prior to that. Sometimes they leave like a question.
Right.
Like then like later on a lot of them. That goes for
true. So absolutely makes sense. So what I will add to this is that we need to stop thinking in a binary way. It's like it's either sahih or not sahih. It's authentic or it's a lie. It's not like that. The hadith is a shade. It's a spectrum of colors from the very bright and accurate to the absolute blatant lie and everything in between in a continuous kind of line or trajectory. So sometimes let's take an example of what you said over this hadith al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, right? So let's say that this story that or the narration that the salat came down from 50 to 5 is authentic. But saying authentic on its own is not enough. We have to find out, is it hadith mutawatir? Is it ahad? Did it come from 3 asanid, 1 isnad, multiple sahaba, single sahaba? All of those play a role because it allows us to judge how much possibility is there of human error in them. The more you get a handle around how many hadith, how many narrations, how many asanids are pointing in the same direction, the easier it becomes for you to address your question mark. Because if I told you this hadith has 4 or 5 different narrations, it's not mutawatir, but it's more than single one. You would come to terms, you would find yourself certain answers in your mind and you'll move on. But if there was only one singular hadith, you might just say, you know what, I'm still having an issue. I'm going to ask even more. So it allows you to go and find out not only if this hadith is a mutawatir or not, a lie or not. It's what's the strength. We're almost grading it to a percentage. This hadith is 95% authentic. This hadith is 75%. This hadith is 65%, and so on. And well, there's no percentages, but once you master the names of the narrators and who they come, you will start to get a sense of who's dependable and who's not, and you'll be able to judge the topics that come from them in the same way. All right, we're good? Right, inshallah. Just like a start. Is there something else? As far as I'm concerned, I have a number of goals from this. Very rarely anybody would memorize the isnad. There are people who do this, but it is not the place where if you have a limited number of time and effort, this is not where you put it. It's now more like memorizing asanid and how the isnad comes. This is a very small number of people who are specialized in this, but right now the books have taken care of that part. What's more important right now is further research and what those books hold. What you will eventually start to memorize are the names of the scholars, the main salient name of the scholars, and more importantly, what their lives looked like. That's one of my main targets from this series of lessons, is apart from knowing the terminologies, which are very helpful, it takes us from the area of being completely oblivious to at least having an idea. But then I want you to be capable of building relationships with biography books, because those scholars who authored the books that we depend on, they're not just like passing in information from one to the other. They were really pious people. They behaved in a way that they understood how Islam was. And the nice thing about it is that they were different than each other. They did not all understand Islam in the same way. They had differences in the way they applied Islam, the way they behaved socially, politically, in different ways. And you're going to see that even though this is a scholar, on the grading, he's at the top. This is a scholar, and the grading, he's at the top, and so on. However, when you put them next to each other, sometimes they contrast. And then you would see that, you know what, there's more than one understanding to Islam. And all of those are great Muslims and great scholars. And when someone comes and they want to pigeonhole all Muslims in one idea and one thought, you will see how small their horizon is and how they have blinders on. Once you start and look around and see different scholars, how they behave differently, you will start to understand that Islam is much more bigger than what we think it is. And you would have proof for it, because those people understood Islam and they were more pious than us at times 100 times minimum. We'll get there. So one of those books that we always, inshallah, when your Arabic becomes more masterful, or maybe there's even English translation, like, for example, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik, at least you have to know their biographies. There's no way you don't know their biographies. There are so many stories about how they dealt with their families. Imam Ahmad especially, there's a lot of stories about, not stories, it's like this detailed description of how he dealt with his kids. And like this gives you a good idea of how to raise a family, how he raised his family, and so on, and how they interacted with each other. So this is the sweet spot that I find from Ilm al-Hadith, that instead of you trying to reinvent it from scratch based on the nuts and bolts you're getting, all what you have to do is just look at how they lived, those people whom we entrusted with this science, and you've just got as if your example solved. You know, when you study a chapter and you say, I think I understand it, but then you go to the exercises and the question and answer in the end of the chapter, and you say, okay, now I understand it much better. When you look at the lives of those scholars, it is the Islam in practice based on their understanding, which is much better. Their knowledge is more authentic, their understanding is better, and their piety is not, our piety and their piety is not even on the same league. So that's how they understood Islam. All right, let's move on, start, inshallah. All right, Ahmed, you want to go for it? نعم. لحظة شوي. inshallah. We have here a number of prints of the books that we are reading from. And there are some versions and some in Arabic and other versions in English. Among some of you who would like to get some, they are free and donations. It's donated by a couple of brothers. Is anyone of you interested? English or Arabic? Sister? Brother? أخي? طيب. This is Arabic. Brother? Okay, so 3 English, Arabic. This is 2 Arabic. And I think if we need more, we can get more. بارك الله فيهم الله يجزيهم الخير. We have to figure out the numbering. All right. So today we will start at this point, which is Hadith Sahih لذاته. Were we all here last time, or we attended the last lesson? No? So you were not here last time? Okay. But I guess the guys at the front row, they were here last time. All right. So all of this is being recorded. Today the weather is not good, so the majority of the brothers and sisters probably are either live streaming or they're going to watch it later on as a recording. So today we are going to start, inshallah, with the Hadith al-Sahih, which is something that's probably has been, you might have heard it before. So we'll go on it bit by bit. So what we said here on the very top, and we are, which page is this? So that if somebody is live streaming, attending live stream, we are on the PDF, page 13. Right, it's at the top there. So last time we mentioned that the universe of all hadith is divided into two groups. One group is called mutawatir, and the second group is called ahad. We said that a mutawatir means a group of hadith that came with so many different asanid from all over different areas geographically that the collective force and authenticity, all of those hadiths, when put together, will leave zero doubt that this is actually something that the Prophet ﷺ had said. And these hadiths, we call them mutawatir. Mutawatir, it means, literally it means successive, but in the Mustalah, it means a hadith that came with many, many chains of narrations to a point where it is not refutable. So these hadith mutawatir, how many are they? Different scholars, depending on what the criteria that they use, end up with either something like 100 hadiths or 500 hadiths. So they are fairly limited in number. Everything else that's not mutawatir is called ahad. So the hadith ahad, now we are subdividing it into a number of different categories based on different factors. One of the factors is the authenticity. We can divide it based on different criteria that we spoke something about it last time. Please go back to that video. We will also speak about it again in the future. But based on authenticity, there's a hadith that's acceptable and the hadith that's not acceptable. The hadith that's acceptable is sahih and hasan. So now today we're talking about the hadith sahih. So hadith sahih has 5 conditions that we probably have met before. So when a scholar has in front of him a hadith and he wants to judge this hadith whether it is hadith sahih, they look at the isnad. And when they look at the isnad, they look at this checklist, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 checklist. So the first item on the checklist is a connected isnad. I will explain a little bit more. The second is adala. And the third is al-dabat. The fourth, adam al-shuzuz, the absence of shuzuz. Last time we spent the part of the halqa explaining what shuzuz was. And the fifth is the absence of illah. We didn't speak anything about illah. So today we will not speak yet about illah. We're going to just speak about the remaining ones quickly. So for example here, اتصال السند The first condition, the connected sanad. Every narrator must have reported directly from the one prior to him, all through the sanad from beginning to the end. It means that each person is narrating something that he heard from the person above him. And just to have the example in parallel, here he has the example in Sahih, in his Sahih collection, Imam al-Bukhari, he said, Abdullah ibn Yusuf narrated to us saying, so Bukhari said, Haddathana Abdullah ibn Yusuf. What did Abdullah ibn Yusuf say? He said, Malik, yani Imam Malik, informed us. Abdullah ibn Yusuf, he said, Akhbarana Malik. And what did Malik say? He said, An, which means from Ibn Shihab. So Imam Malik, he said, An Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. And Ibn Shihab, he said, An Muhammad ibn Jubair. So Ibn Shihab said, An Muhammad ibn Jubair. And Muhammad ibn Jubair, what he said? He said, An his father. Muhammad ibn Jubair said, An Jubair ibn Mut'im. That's the father of Muhammad ibn Jubair. You can see Muhammad, the son of Jubair, and this is Jubair himself, his father. What did his father say? He said, I heard the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recite Surah At-Tur in the Maghrib prayer. So Jubair ibn Mut'im, he said, سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ بسورة الطور في صلاة المغرب. So this is the hadith in here. So if we go to the first conditions, when the scholar is looking at this hadith, he's going to look, okay, we have an isnad here. It's Bukhari, Abdullah bin Yusuf, Malik ibn Shihab, Muhammad ibn Jubair, Jubair ibn Mut'im, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did the Bukhari meet Abdullah bin Yusuf? Yep, he met him. Did Abdullah bin Yusuf meet Malik? Yep, he met him. Malik ibn Shihab? Yes, he met him. And Ibn Shihab, did he meet Muhammad ibn Jubair? Yes, he did. And Muhammad ibn Jubair, did he see his father? Yes, he did. And is Jubair ibn Mut'im a Sahabi who, well, he said, Sami'tu, I heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now we have a connected isnad. This is the first condition. But I mean, sometimes you have a person here, not Ibn Shihab, let's say somebody else, who's a bad narrator for what different reasons. The fact that the isnad is connected does not mean that it is directly a hadith sahih or an authentic hadith. It only means that we have the electricity flowing without interruption, but there's a lot more work to be done. All right? Is there any questions so far about this part? Number one. Number two, al-adala. And number three, ad-dabt. We talk about them in the same time. Adala, adl, is a term that is used in jurisprudence when there's a judge and there's a case and he says, are there witnesses? Yeah, there's a witness comes and the judge asks for proof of his adala, which means his trustworthiness, that he's capable of delivering a testimony and that he is an honorable person. This is adala, that he's not going to lie and he's honorable. So adala, every narrator should be a Muslim. Baligh, which means he's an adult, mature. Aqil, of sound mind, not a light-headed person. Not a fasiq, not someone who is openly a sinner. And not makhrum al-maru'a, and not a person whose integrity is compromised. So this tells us so much about this person that he is a good Muslim as far as his religion is, but tells us nothing about how good his memory is. So every narrator, we have to do two tests. One test is for his the quality of his deen, and second quality is about how good his memory, which comes the second one. It's called ad-dabt. Every narrator is tam ad-dabt. Tam means completely. Ad-dabt, it means retentive, which means when he met his teacher, his scholar, his sheikh, he retained and preserved perfectly what he took from him, regardless whether this retention, dabt, is by heart or by writing. Maybe the person doesn't want to memorize the hadith that he heard from his sheikh. He sat down with his copybook and everything the sheikh said, he wrote it down. So when he memorized it, they call it, he memorized it in his chest. They don't say in his head. That's why they say dabat sadr, his memorization by chest. And here, loosely he translated it by heart, but it's actually by chest if we want to just be literal. In the end, it means he doesn't need a book. He knows it by heart. Or the second type is a dabat al-kitab, which means he retained it through writing. And what's best is having them both. And a lot of scholars had them both. They knew everything by heart and had it written down as well. All right? So when we're talking here about this hadith, which is in Sahih al-Bukhari, we know that Abdullah bin Yusuf is adl wa dabit. Malik is adl dabit. Ibn Shihab, adl dabit. Muhammad ibn Jubair, adl wa dabit. And Jubair ibn Mut'im is a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Al-Hadith. Here, it is the tool that has been used to relay the information. So Jubair ibn Mut'im, he used sami'tu, because when you look at the isnad, so Bukhari, when you look at the book of Bukhari, you will find the isnad exactly like this. قال البخاري حدثنا عبد الله بن يوسف قال أخبرنا مالك عن ابن شهاب عن محمد بن جبير عن جبير بن مطعم قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this is the method in which they use, because it's very important. We'll come to this in a little bit later on. Today we'll come to it. So it's always very, very important in how they relate the information. Maybe you don't understand Arabic sentences, but can you read Arabic? If I gave you a word, you can read it. All right, you could? Okay. Do you know the alphabets in order? Brother Muaz? Ahnaf, do you know the alphabets in order? All right. All right, we'll do something in a bit. So now, the scholar who's studying this hadith, he found that this hadith is connected. He found that each narrator is a quality narrator. So that's great. What else do we want? Remember last time we spoke about shuzuz, shadda, shuzuz. Shuzuz is when we have someone who is most of the time a reliable person, but this particular instance, he made a mistake. It's a rare mistake, but still a mistake. If someone does a lot of mistakes, then he's going to be downgraded from being a thiqa, which means a reliable narrator, down to something else. But sometimes even a great scholar might make a mistake. And what do we call his mistake? We call it shuzuz. It's just a terminology, because when a weak person writes something that conflicts with a scholar, we don't call it shuzuz. We call it something else, because he's weak. Like, who cares? But when it's someone who's a big scholar makes a mistake and conflicts with other big scholar, and we identify who is wrong and who is right, the mistake from that good scholar, we call it shuzuz. So what we're saying in here is that we need to be smart about it. We cannot fall into a trap where whenever we find a single hadith, we just, as long as it passes those 3 tests that we did in here, we automatically go and give it a passing grade. That's the difference between us, who are limited in their capacity, and the scholars. The scholars, because they know tens of thousands of hadiths together in their head, when one hadith comes like this, they are comparing it in their memory, in their head, against other ahadiths that came. And they might find there's something wrong here, even though like all of those people are authentic, but there are other students. So let's presume Imam Malik is a great scholar, and he has maybe 20 people of his students who narrated the same hadith, and all of them are great students. one of them made a mistake. So this scholar in his head, he's comparing all those narrations, and he said, that narration has an issue. So it's the right way to do is that you don't judge a hadith by a single isnad. You have to be comprehensive. And this is something that makes research in hadith so much more time consuming. It's not a simple thing where we get single isnad, open a book, check, and then you put your answer. You need to spend years after years knowing how to collect all of the hadith that are within the same subject, putting them next to each other and analyzing them in collectivity. Yes. Absolutely. It's much easier to put all the asanid next to each other, but you still have the big task because that is part of the research work. It's putting all the asanid next to each other. But the other part is that in the universe of all different narrators, when we get all the names of all those narrators who are named in the Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi and Nasa'i and all of these, put them all together, probably there's like 10,000 names, right? Out of those 10,000, there's 1,000 that are beyond doubt authentic, reliable, another 1,000 who are without doubt not reliable, but you have a lot of people in the middle. And each one of those narrators, you have to spend time to come to a conclusion if he narrated that hadith, whether it's acceptable or not. Because you're going to have so many different input into that equation that you are required to look into before you come to a final judgment. And that's where it takes a lot of time, and that's where computer cannot help you. You need to go and get all of the narration. We have this narrator, Shahr. His name is Shahr. And he was here in this country and in that country. He met this scholar and that scholar. Sometimes he's in line, sometimes he's not in line with other narrators. You put them next together, and you have this single hadith that Shahr is the only one who narrated it. You have to make a call to it. But you're looking at the whole universe. You want to come to a conclusion about what Shahr said and what his rating is. You know what? You might come to a conclusion. Another scholar will come to a different conclusion because there's no right and wrong in this exercise. And these are things that computers cannot help you. There's always a human input and it's subjective. And this is what makes that when people think that Islam is rigid, it's as rigid as the person's head who is speaking about the Islam. But in Islam itself is very liquid. Its boundaries are quite movable in many things, not everything, but in many things, because of these little things. And you will start to find that when you are researching a certain topic and you find out that its critical decision is based on this single hadith, and this hadith's authenticity is based on the single narrator, and this single narrator has the scholars against each other, they don't agree. Then, you know what? You cannot claim that Islam is one answer in the subject. You have to acknowledge it has multiple answers. We good so far? How are we doing on time? They don't want to tell us what the time. 5 minutes to 7. All right, we're good. So, connectivity, he is a good Muslim. He has a great memory, either by book or by head or both. And Adam Shuzuz, which means we are not limited in our view. When we have an isnad, we look and we collect everything else in the same subject to find out that whether this isnad is in line, mainstream, or it conflicts with the other, and why is the reason of the conflict, and who conflicted it. So that is really a laborious thing. And finally, we come to Adam al-Alla, which I will not talk about it now. It's the fifth condition in here, but these are basically the main ideas. Shudud. Shadda is 2 letters. Shadda, sheen, and da, which looks like a da with a point on top. Shudud, we passed by it. So think I could do it this way. Oh, it's not going to give me lag. Oh, actually, I brought it on the side here. Yes, it's written. This is shudud. Adam ashudud. It's written like that. All right. You weren't here, so part of that lesson you're going to miss out. It's okay if you don't understand the whole concept of shuzuz, because we took almost half of last lesson on this topic itself. It's a page on its own, and there was an example in it as well. I'm not going to go back, but you can go back to the recording and listen to it, inshallah. All right. So let's see here the example. This hadith is sahih because the sanad is connected. Every narrator heard it directly from his shaykh. As it relates to the an'ana of Malik, Ibn Shihab and Ibn Jubair is still considered to be connected because they were not mudallis. Okay, presume you did not hear the sentence, because the next chapter that we're going to read now is about tadlis and mudallis. And once we finish that one, we'll come back in here and the sentence will make sense to you. Each narrator is adl. He fulfills the conditions of adala. He's a good Muslim. He is observes, and he is a pious Muslim. And each narrator on top of that, not only his deen is good, but he is also dabit. His memory is impeccable. He fulfills the condition of dabat. Descriptions of the narrators from the scholars of al-jarh wa ta'dil. Disparagement and validations which indicate their adala and dabat. Okay, so what he's saying in here we have the same scholars. Abdullah ibn Yusuf, Malik ibn Anas, that's Imam Malik, Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, Muhammad ibn Jubair, and Jubair ibn Mut'im. I have books, I will have you look them up in a moment, and we will get to the same conclusion here. So here he pulled up the ratings of each of those narrators from the books of Jarh wa Ta'dil. Jarh wa Ta'dil are this. This is one book only. It's just one volume. It's called by Ibn Hajar. No need. Taqrib al-Tahdhib. So if you open it in here, you would find that Ibn Hajar has listed by single line the name of a narrator, and then he would specify in which book of hadith does this narrator appear in, what is his full name, what generation he belongs to, what is his rating, and what year he passed away. So in here you will find the rating of what kind of a quality of narrator he is. And this paragraph over here, A, B, C, D, E, it's pulled from this book. Okay, so I will pass this book over, and then we can pull the names and see if we can come to the same result that we have here in our book. All right, and then it says number 4, which is here. To prove that this hadith is sahih, he said, the hadith is not shadh, since no stronger report contradicts it, which means there's no, after collecting all of the other narrations in the same topic, there's no conflict with any other one, hence there's no shuzuz, and condition number 4 is fulfilled. Again, we are overlooking condition number 5. We'll come to it later on, inshallah. So let's go now to tadlis, which is an important topic. Do this. Yeah. All right. Tadlis is important to understand. And there's different types of tadlis. We are going to take only one of them, I believe. Yeah, tadlis al-isnad. So al-mudallas is a description. Okay, what page are we? We are on page 26 of the PDF. Al-mudallas is a description of an isnad in which tadlis has occurred. So tadlis, literally from the word dalas, which means darkness. Technically, concealing, which means in hadith sciences, concealing a flaw in the isnad and enhancing its appearance. All right, it's still very general. So let's dive a little bit deeper with reading the first paragraph, and inshallah it will be made clear. Tadlis al-isnad, a narrator reports from someone he is known to have heard from. All right? So, ذكرني اسمك Abdul Qadir. So we have brother Ahmed is a student of Sheikh Abdul Qadir. So a narrator, Ahmed, reports from someone he is known to have heard from. Everybody knows that Ahmed is a student of Sheikh Abdul Qadir and he always attended his hadith sessions. Yet, he narrates something which he did not hear directly from him. And suddenly we have a hadith that Ahmed narrates. He did not hear it from Abdul Qadir, doing so without saying that he heard it directly. We're going to make brother Ahnaf, we're going to make him, you accept it, allow you to make a weak narrator for a little bit, then we can put you back into authentic. So actually this hadith, Ahmed heard it from brother Ahnaf, who is a weak narrator, and he heard it from Sheikh Abdul Qadir. Okay, he did not hear it from Sheikh Abdul Qadir, but if brother Ahmed goes and narrates this hadith and he says, حدثني أحنف قال حدثني عبد القادر, nobody is going to be interested in this hadith because brother Ahnaf is weak. So what happens if brother Ahmed goes and he drops the name of brother Ahnaf and he says, I heard Sheikh Abdul Qadir say this, then he becomes a liar because he never heard it. So what he does, he uses a term that conceals the fact. So instead of saying, I heard him, he will say, oh, Abdul Qadir said. And because he is his student, everybody's going to presume that he heard it from him. But once we catch him that he does tadlis, we're going to put his name in the book of Mudallisin. Okay? Many scholars, they consider tadlis to be a flaw in the character. And if somebody does tadlis, then they're going to just put an X on the narrator. After debating back and forth, the conclusion was that as long as he is using this other term that is not saying I heard Abdul Qadir, he's using the term an. So when he used, Ahmed says an Abdul Qadir, that he said so and so, then we'll tell, you know what, unless you say I heard Abdul Qadir, we are not going to take it from you. Why? Because his name is in the book of Mudallisin. And the majority of other narrators are not Mudallisin. If they say an Abdul Qadir, they actually heard him because they hate tadlis and they never do tadlis. But if we catch someone say tadlis once, we're going to include his name in the book of Mudallisin, in the list of name of Mudallisin. And whenever he uses a term that does not mean direct listening and hearing the sheikh, we're not going to accept it from him. So let's read this again. So tadlis al-isnad, a narrator reports from someone he is known to have heard from, yet he narrates something which he did not hear directly from him, doing so without saying that he heard it directly. It takes the form of a narrator reporting from a sheikh from whom Am I the right line? Yeah, from whom he heard some ahadith. However, as for the hadith of which he is making tadlis, he did not actually hear it from him, but instead heard it through another person from his initial sheikh. Hence, he omits that person and narrates it from his initial sheikh using a phrase that could imply direct hearing, such as a lack, as well as a lack of, like it's a generic term, such as qala Abdul Qadir. When Ahmed says qala Sheikh Abdul Qadir, is it, did you hear it? Did you not hear it? He left it open. It's for you to guess. Or an, which an, it means from. It doesn't mean that I heard it. In order to give the impression that he did actually hear it directly, he does not make the outright claim that he heard it directly. Furthermore, it is possible, and refrains from using phrases like sami'tu, I heard, or haddathani, he narrated to me, so that he would not be lying. Furthermore, it is possible that he may have omitted one or even more people. Mashi, are we good? Hiding part of the truth. He's not bending anything, he just took a part off and he kept it obscure. Some Shu'bah, he said, I would rather have adultery than make tadlis. And some scholar really threw it all the way back there. And others would say, well, I made tadlis because it's shorter for the isnad. And if you ask that person, whom did you omit? He will tell you, I omitted that person, and that person is reliable. So it's not all people who omit narrators have ill intent. And that's why even the people who are named as mudallisin, there are 5 different groups. Maybe at some point in time we'll take those groups. But in general, this is the main idea. So when we open here, if the person is mudallis, Ibn Hajar will say mudallis. He would put it in here. And you would know that if he said an, it means, no, you can't do it. You cannot presume that he did not hide something. He might have hid a narrator. All right? This is a part of tadlis that I wanted to speak about today, and it's called tadlis al-isnad, which means upgrading the isnad, right? Upgrading it in a bad way. The isnad, if you put it in together and you wrote, okay, Ahmed said, an Ahnaf, an Abdul Qadir, everybody would look and they will identify the weak narrator in here. They can judge it very quickly. So what he does is that he takes away the name of one of the narrators and puts an in the middle and makes it clear. Don't forget the problem here, if them two never met, we all know, oh, Ahmed never met Sheikh Abdul Qadir. It's easy. If the times are different, generations are different, countries are different, we know that they never met. It's not a big deal. We know that there's a gap in here and he omitted someone. The problem is that when they actually met and he hides a name, you will presume it must be one of the things he heard from him. But in reality, he did not. Okay? So we go back to page 13 where we were. No, yeah, page 13. Let's read this again. The sanad, okay, now let's go here. What tool did Bukhari use to narrate from his Sheikh Abdullah bin Yusuf? He used haddathana. Haddathana, it means he told us. And when they use he told us, maybe linguistically you can tell what, maybe I wasn't present, whatever. But in hadith sciences, when somebody says he told us, it means I was on my knees in front of him and he was, on the pulpit in front and he was narrating to us. There's no to haddathana, it means I was present and I heard him in person. So Bukhari was present when Abdullah ibn Yusuf narrated this hadith. And Abdullah ibn Yusuf, he says, akhbarana. Akhbarana and haddathana, they're very similar. And it both means in person. No two ways about it. Mashi? Now we come on Malik. What did he use? An. Imam Malik, when he narrated from his Shaykh ibn Shihab, he used the term an. An. We have to be careful. There's an here. And Ibn Shihab, when he narrated from Ibn Jubayr, Muhammad ibn Jubayr, he also used an. And Muhammad ibn Jubayr, when he narrated from his dad, he also used an. So this is check. This is check. And here we have to do a secondary check. Is he a mudallis? Is he mudallis? Is he mudallis? Oh, actually not him. Malik, Ibn Shihab, and Muhammad ibn Jubayr. Three of them, they use the term an. And we have to find out if they're mudallisin or not. So if we look here again, the sanad is connected. Every narrator heard it directly from his sheikh. Now, this is a part that now you should understand. As it relates to the an'ana, which means the use of the term an, of Malik, Ibn Shihab, and Ibn Jubayr, it is still considered to be connected because they were not mudallis narrators. Okay? Yes, sir. You cannot force them to use it. They use whatever they use because at that time it was not intended to be very meticulous and haphazard. It was just a social activity that to relate something about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was not this development of hadith terminology. It took time until it got to the point where we have akhbarana and haddathana and the difference between akhbarana. In the beginning, it was all qala wa an, and then you have to stop and analyze whether is this a mudallis or not, and so on. It was still quite primitive at that point in time. All right. I'm going to put up something in Arabic, and if you guys find it a little difficult, I translated it in English, and we can also read it in English, but I don't think I can put them side by side. I will read the Arabic first, and then we go to the English, and hopefully we can do it in time. All right. All right. So when we say the 6 books, what are the 6 books? Bukhari, Muslim. Abu Dawud. Okay, what is the approximate years in which those authors lived? When did the earliest one die? When did the last one die? What is the century or part of a century in which those books were authored? Give me second to third. When you say second century to the 3rd century, it means from the year 100 to 200. That's the 2nd century, right? From 100 to 200, the 2nd century. Yeah. Any other 3rd century, 4th century? No, 3rd century, right? Okay. So all the earliest one of them is Imam Bukhari, who passed away in the year 256. The last one of them, Imam Nasa'i, who passed away in the year 303. So let's say it roughly 250 to 300. In that range is when the 6 books got authored. And are there other books after them? Of course there are. But when those books were written, they became almost like the focal of attention. And even the books that came afterwards, somehow they passed through them. They use the same narrators, because when we had here the Bukhari, and then his Sheikh Abdullah bin Yusuf, and then Imam Malik, and so on, those Imam Bukhari, even though he's important, But there's many other ones like Imam Bukhari who had access to Abdullah ibn Yusuf. Abdullah ibn Yusuf became very popular. All the shuyukh of those 6 books, their shuyukh are very popular. And they are accessible to many other narrators. So from the tabaqa above them, which was Imam Malik and so on, this is a group where it actually is all the asanid will converge. And when we are studying whether the narrators are reliable or not, we are looking on the narrators who lived from the students of the Sahaba until the year around 200. Okay, these are the important people because after that, hadith has proliferated significantly, and it became, the same hadith, you could find it many different ways. You're not stuck on a narrator who lived in the year 220. You're stuck on a narrator who was in the year 150 if you cannot find this hadith elsewhere. So why I'm saying this, let's read here first a little bit, and this will give you an idea. So I put up a page, which is from this book again, Ibn Hajar, Taqrib, and in each single line, when he names a narrator, he would put his tabaqa. Do you know what tabaqa means? Can somebody translate tabaqa? Layer, give me another word. Level or generation. And our context in here is generation. So I think he put here 12. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there's more we're going to look at. I can make it smaller and put the whole thing together so that. Here you go. Now we can take a better picture. It will have everything in it. All right. So the first generation, as-Sahaba. I have an English translation of this, okay? So I'll put it up to the Google class if you want to. Hey? Okay, that's fine. So the first generation is considered as-Sahaba على اختلاف مراتبهم, regardless of their own differences and seniority and how junior or senior. Like there's Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and there's someone who accepted Islam in the last year was Hajjat al-Wada'. They're all considered Sahaba. They met the Prophet ﷺ. They can narrate about the Prophet ﷺ. So all of them, he considers them one layer. I'm going to use the layer because they are not one generation here. They are they have one common quality, which is that they met the Prophet ﷺ. He put them all together. And then he said here just وَتَمِيز مَنْ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا مُجَرَّدُ الرُّؤْيَا مِنْ غَيْرِهِ. I will mention if someone only saw the Prophet ﷺ, but he did not accompany him. Okay, so this is a small technicality. So this is the first طبقة. الطبقة الثانية كبار التابعين, seniors, followers. So followers, tabi'een, are the people who met Sahabi. If we have any Sahabi, and then we have another Muslim who met him after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we cannot call him Sahabi, right? The student, we call him Tabi'i. Because if he met the Prophet ﷺ, he'll be Sahabi. If the Prophet ﷺ has passed away already, and he saw one of the Sahaba, this person is called Tabi'i. But if we have someone who saw Sayyidina Abu Bakr, different than someone who only saw Sayyidina Anas when he was, 90 years later on. So there are Sahabi, there are Tabi'een who came to the Medina, they met Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and the Prophet ﷺ had already passed away. So these are considered senior Tabi'een. Like whom? Like Ibn al-Musayyib, Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. فإن كان مخضرما صرحت بذلك. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, he passed away they're not sure exactly what year he passed away, but I think it's 91. I should have written it like I've written here, but I didn't write. So Ibn al-Musayyib is 91. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, he saw Sayyidina Umar. Like, imagine how senior he was. He was not too far away from the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So he's considered one of the very senior min at-tabi'een, right? So the Ibn Hajar, he gave him this tabaqa, the second tabaqa. And then the next tabaqa, the third one, he called it the medium seniority from the tabi'een, such as Al-Hasan al-Basri wa Ibn Sirin. Both of them died in the same year, 110. And they narrated hadith. These are like famous people that, again, if we go to what I started, if you want to understand more about Islam, read the biographies of those people we are mentioning here. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib is very important to read his tarjumi, very important, because he was at the time of Bani Umayyah and he had a political stand. And then you will understand how Muslims behaved with political system that they felt was unjust. How did they react with it? So we're not talking here about how well he narrated the hadith. It's how he applied what he understood from hadith in his real life. The third tabaqa is the middle seniority. And then the fourth one is the next, he just said, the next seniority. And most جل روايتهم عن كبار التابعين. The majority of what they narrate is from the senior tabi'in. So this fourth one in here, they did not narrate, even though we call them followers, but they did not narrate from the Sahaba. They might have met some Sahaba, but they did not narrate from them. Their shuyukh are mostly kibar al-tabi'in. Kibar al-tabi'in is this people. So the fourth is narrating from the second. Like whom? Like Zuhri. Do you remember this name? We just mentioned the Zuhri in here in the Hadith Sahih, Ibn Shihab Zuhri. He was the Sheikh of Imam Malik. Naam. Ibn Shihab Zuhri. Naam. Ibn Shihab Zuhri, that's his name. Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Shihab Zuhri, and he passed away 124. And Qatada, his name is very famous because you see him in the tafsir. He's made, you'll see his name. He passed away in the year 110 and something. They don't know exactly at what year. Okay, and the fifth generation is the juniors of the tabi'een. They might have seen a single or two from the Sahaba, but they never narrated anything from them. Similar to Al-A'mash. Al-A'mash, who passed away in the year 148. All right. I don't want to run through this like this. I just want to show you the English one and leave the rest for the Sister Nada. When I post something in here, do the people see it? Okay. All right, we'll leave it like this. So the first generation is the Sahaba, the companions. They are lumped together regardless of their rankings. And he would make a note of those who only saw the Prophet ﷺ but did not hear from him. The second generation are senior followers, senior tabi'een, like Ibn al-Musayyab or Ibn al-Musayyib. It could be pronounced in either way. He did not like people saying Ibn al-Musayyab. He prefers people called him Ibn al-Musayyib. He liked this name. He did not like that one, who died in the year 91. And Ibn Hajar said, if the narrator was Mukhadram, that he will note it. Mukhadram, it means this narrator accepted Islam during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, but he never met him. The third generation, the middle seniority followers, such as Al-Hasan al-Basri, 110, and Ibn Sirin, 110. The fourth generation is the next one. They mostly narrate from senior followers, which we said like number 2. Examples, Az-Zuhri, who passed away 124, and Qatada 110 plus unknown number in here. The fifth generation, the younger seniority generation of them, i.e. the followers, they might have seen 1 or 2 Sahaba, but there's no evidence that they heard any of the companions, such as Al-A'mash. He died in the year 148. Al-Amash is one of those really special characters, absolutely special character. He lived in Iraq and he did not like the Hanafi school. And when he was sick, Imam Abu Hanifa, who passed in the year 150, Imam Abu Hanifa, so it's 2 years after Al-Amash, and they both lived in the Kufa. So Al-Amash, he was a very known scholar and hadith narrator. He was sick. So Imam Abu Hanifa, who is one of the known for his intelligence and wisdom, he went to Al-Amash and he wanted to console him for during his illnesses. And Imam Abu Hanifa, he said, لا أريد أن أثقل عليك. I do not want to burden you by being, next to you here for a long time. I just came to visit you. And the Amash told him, don't worry, you burden me even if you were at your own home, because he did not like him at all. And Amash, one time, some visitors came over to him, and he gave them a loaf of bread. And like they were guests, so he just offered them a loaf of bread. And they stayed. Then he gave them a second loaf of bread. So they ate it too. And then he gave them a rope made of grass. And they looked at it. And the guest told Amash, like, what is this? He said, I first gave you my own food, then I gave you my wife's food, and now I'm giving you the food of my goat. And he once entered, and these are all true stories. Once he entered into a masjid, and he saw that there was a hadith circle, but the sheikh who was giving the lesson over there was completely off mark. Like he was unauthentic, making things up and saying stuff that he shouldn't be saying. And Amash is an authentic narrator. So Amash, he went and he sits in the middle of the halqa, takes off his top part, and he started pulling the hair from under his armpit. And the sheikh said, Amash, his name is Sulaiman ibn Mahran, like, what the heck are you doing? I said, what? I'm in a sunnah, you're in a bid'ah. So you would never imagine that Imam Ahmad would do anything like this. But then you've got eccentric personalities like Al-Amash, and you would see that by reading about how they behaved and so on, will tell you, like, not everybody is created in the same way. So Al-Amash in here, and the 6 ones which we did not read in the Arabic, they met and studied under the 5th year and did not meet any Sahaba at all, such as Ibn Jurayj. He died in the year 150 and something. We have 4 minutes, so we are going to do something about it. Al-Amash, his name is Sulaiman ibn Mahran. Can you pull him out? Sulaiman ibn Mahran. They better, because if not, it's going to be a problem. See if you can find Sulaiman ibn Mahran in here. This is the same book as he has over here. See if you can find Sulaiman ibn Mahran. Mahran, Mim, Ha, Ra. ما في فهرس. You have to go by the alphabet. با تا ثا جا ح خا دا زا را ذا سين شين. You got it? Okay. لحظة. Hold your breath. Just want to see where the others are. Okay. Go yeah, open in the middle of the book. Open in the middle of the book. Where are you? Which letter are you? Wait, leave it here. What's the first letter?
Ain.
Ain. Huh? Yes. So Sin is before. And here is Sufyan. Okay, so you get the Sin correct. Now after the Fa, we're looking for Lam. Oh, here's Sulaiman. Okay. No, okay, now we finished the Sulaiman. Sufyan, sorry, Sufyan. Okay. You want to go for Sulaiman. So now we're at Salman.
Sulaiman. Yeah.
Where's Sulaiman? So we need a ya after the lam. Yeah, we continue. You will find it. There you go. Ibn Mahran. So all the Sulaiman. Now with the father's name, go for the letter Mim. This is a difficult book. I gave you a tough one. Okay. So where are we here? Ain. Abdul Waris. Abdul Wahid. So we go before. We're still with Ain. This is Asim. is before Sulaiman. Okay, so Sulaiman. Look for Sulaiman ibn Mahran. This is Sulaiman ibn Dawood. Sulaiman ibn Dawood. So you're looking for Sulaiman ibn Mahran. Ladies, you found it? Mahran. Huh? Mahran. Sulaiman. Okay, more.
Yeah, more.
Fairuz, more. Okay, so we're here. Somewhere here. Oh, Sulaiman ibn.
Mehran here.
That's.
Al-Asadi, huh?
Okay, continue. And here. Okay, there you go. You guys, how close are we? Sulaiman ibn Yasar, we're getting close here. Mahran, Sulaiman ibn Mansour, Lamanaha, here. This is the one. All right. Okay, go ahead. Can you read slowly what you have? So Abu Muhammad, that's his name related to his son. Al-Kufi, he's from Kufa. Al-A'mash. One word at a time. First word, thiqa. Thiqa, okay? So he's telling us that he's a thiqa. Thiqa, it means he's reliable. He's one of the higher levels of narrators. Thiqa. But then Hafiz, he's not only thiqa, he's giving him additional qualities to tell you that he's even higher. Okay, the Shabab here, you have a different book. We're not on the same reading, so you will read it in a second. بعدين عارف بالقراءات. Not only he is a hadith scholar, he's also a قراءات Quran scholar. بعدين إيه؟ وين هاد؟ ورع. نعم. ورع. It means he has piety. And then what he says? لكنه يدلس. You see? لكنه يدلس. So you would have to be careful about Amash when he makes at least. بعدين من الخامسة, it means he's from the fifth here. He's from the younger generation, from this generation. Okay, بعدين. Okay, so he passed away in the year 47. Because you know from which generation, he's not going to waste his breath or ink and tell you 148. He's going to just tell you 48. And you will figure out there's 100 missing. Because you know him from the fifth generation. Okay, so if somebody else coming from the 12th generation, he might also tell you he died in the year 48, but you have to know it's 248 based on the generation. It saves them time and it makes sense. Once he told you the generation, there's no point that you're gonna think he really passed away in the year 48 before Sayyidah Aisha. Okay, and so on. This is more difficult to read. You ladies, you got the idea? You see how that is? And then there's one more thing in the beginning. And then it has a letter Ain in the end. Letter Ain, it means Al-Jama'a, which means he has narrations in the 6 books. Okay, these are codes that if you go at the beginning of this book, you would know what he meant. But because he said Ain, it means Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Nasai, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah. Al-Amash is found in their books altogether. All right, I'm going to read quickly here, the 2 lines, and then we can call it a day. Sulaiman ibn Mahran, Abu Muhammad al-Kufi al-A'mash, Ahad al-A'lam, one of the scholars, al-Huffaz, wal-Qurra, Ra'a Anasan, he saw Sayyidina Anas. And then here he would mention the main shuyukh of his. And okay, there's too many things to read over here. من شيوخه من طبقته شعبة وسفيان ووكيع. He has 1,300 hadith. قال ابن عيينة, he was the most knowledgeable in Quran. And he used to be called the Al-Mushaf. And ثقة سبت. طيب, we will stop in here so that we allow the people who wants to pray to continue. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We can stop the recording. Allah يبارك فيك.